I've got upwards of 2 burger anecdotes for the podcast this week.
Okay. Is that going to be in the Patreon section?
Oh, no.
We're just cramming everything into the cold open now.
You're going to make everybody listen to that?
Oh, we get a lot of shots. Everybody come to the net. We just have to get more and more pucks to the net.
Pucks on net.
Pucks on net. Putting pucks on net. We used to talk about in Vancouver getting pucks on net.
What were you saying about putting pucks on net?
Continue to put pucks on net.
Pucks on net!
Put pucks on net and get lucky sometime.
Pucks on net and driving and making a hard night on it.
Live on tape from Geeta's apartment. Her palatial estate on the 23rd floor. This is Pucks on Net, a Vancouver hockey podcast that doesn't talk about fantasy or fancy stats. This is also our official watch-along episode for the first Scary Movie, as that's what's on in the background here at Geeta's palatial estate. Paul's never seen it before, so I don't think it will resonate with him the way it is with Geeta and myself. You don't agree, Paul?
No.
No.
I don't even know what to say to that.
Fair enough.
What did you watch in your youth?
Star Trek.
Oh. Like one of those movies where they go and save a whale or something on some planet?
I did have that one on VHS. We recorded it off KBOS when I was a kid. So I think somewhere we still have the tape, and it's got Red Robinson in the commercial breaks.
What was he selling? Or was he doing what?
He'd do these like throws where he'd have fun facts about the movie. He would tell you from the parking lot of a budget rent-a-car.
Ooh.
It was like Red Robinson's Friday Night Theater or something like that.
Budget theater.
Yeah, budget. Yeah, that's probably what it was called.
Here's my fun fact about Red Robinson, everybody.
Okay.
In the 7 years I worked at the Vancouver Giants,
right.
we would put anytime we had a puck drop or something, we would put a very slippery carpet out to center ice, and it would always be like, I'm amazed nobody falls on that thing. You know, all these old hockey players, Gordie Howe every year, nobody fell on it. One guy slipped on the carpet, and it was Red Robinson. Aww. And it was terrifying. And he got up and he was like, I'm okay, folks. I'm okay. I was nervous. Like it was a good spill.
And they only got that carpet after that Michael Jackson impersonator came and dropped the puck at the Canucks game.
That's not photoshopped at all, Paulie. No, not at all. Just walk out there. It's not dangerous. My name's Ryan Jabb. I'm going to be your delightful host of the evening. Riding shotgun to my immediate left is Geeta. She owns this joint.
Here I am.
And P Mac sitting directly across from me, no longer backlit, so I can see everything.
Yep, you turned on that lamp. Sorry, I don't know. Geeta compared me to Eeyore before the show. I feel like I just absorbed even more of that pessimism.
Well, are you gonna live up to it, or are you gonna?
You brought the pessimism.
You gonna change the game?
I feel like I'm like this every week.
No, you got.
You're just extra critical.
Do you
want
to talk about what's going on with you?
I had a really good day. Like that's why I was surprised by you two today.
What do you mean? Ryan's like, I want to do this.
Why are you in such a bad mood, Eeyore?
You said that our super fun dating game segment was going to be a real downer.
Yeah, but I say that about every show.
Wait, just say that about most shows. Like, we'll do a really fun show, and he'll be like, and in the elevator going down, I'm like, Paul, that was a pretty good show. And he's like, was it?
What's happened to you?
That's just, hey.
I don't get those elevator conversations.
No, you're just like, thank God they
Go away. Now we can eat ice cream.
Is that
I don't have to talk to them for a week.
Is that what you do when we leave? Just a big penny pack of ice cream?
You could do that while we're here.
No. It's going to pick up on the mic, and then everything's going to get all sticky from her tub of Neapolitan. I want to thank you for joining us wherever you got us from. Make sure you follow us on Twitter at PucksOnNetCA or PucksOnNetCa. And if you want to support the show monetarily, you can head on over to patreon.com/PucksOnNet, where you can pledge a couple of bucks. Couple of bucks. Tonight on 5 Minutes for Paying, we are going to play the dating game, where we each have we have 5 questions about ourselves that we're going to ask the other two, and we're going to see how we match up. Do you want to know one of my questions?
All right.
Just a little teaser.
Okay.
Where is it here? I don't want you to shout it out. I just want you to think about it. But this is one of the questions you will be forced to answer. I can eat this food incredibly quickly. I can eat this food incredibly quickly. $5, and you can listen to that.
Are you still in disagreement with me that this could be a weird segment, Geeta?
Oh, it's gonna be weird.
As Paul and I look at each other, going, "What does he eat really quickly? Like everything."
Okay, Dad.
We went out, had dinner last week one night.
And he
was done his food before mine even got to the table.
Yeah, that way he can also eat your food.
You got to do what I do and order a big plate of raw fish, and he'll be a little iffy on that.
When I do give you the answer, I think you'll get it right. But if you don't, you will have a real big aha moment.
Okay.
And you'll go, "Oh my God, you do."
Okay.
Aha moment. So like, take on me.
Yeah, you will take on me. Take on me.
Yeah.
No Dave again this week. I think he'll be back soon, though. I got a feeling.
I heard he's starting his own expansion podcast in Ottawa.
Well, yeah. What's it called?
Are they moving them?
The Melnick Minute.
I should hope
They're
not.
moving to Quebec City.
The
Dave's podcast.
Yeah. Well, the Shabbat talk. Shatak. I don't know.
That's a mushroom.
We'll workshop this for Dave, I guess.
Well, we got to come up with these names. Well, we got to ship podcasts in a bag to Ottawa once a week.
Kachuk's on net.
Damn, shit.
Ooh.
Paul.
That was okay?
Yeah, we got it. There you go, Dave. You're welcome. Go pick up the podcast in a bag at the Greyhound station. Big game happening. P Mac, have you been keeping track of the out-of-town scoreboard?
Little bit. Are you talking about Edmonton?
Nope.
Yeah, Edmonton. Who are they playing right now?
Edmonton is up 2-0 on the Rangers.
That is the out-of-town scoreboard game.
I thought you were talking about the big Leafs game.
Geeta, come on. Rangers, Oilers, 12 games left in the regular season. The Glen Sather Open, or the whatever you want to call that. No, the Leafs and the Tampa Bay Lightning had their big. Let's see what really happens in this kind of game.
Okay.
It was a playoff preview, is what it was hyped.
I was just surprised the Oilers had 2 goals in the first 10 minutes of a hockey game.
That's it. That's probably all the scoring for the rest of the season.
Yeah, they got 2.
They're done. They met their quota.
Actually, Zach Cassian, I just saw on his Instagram, he had a baby.
Aww.
So maybe he could really turn things around and, maybe be charged up by that and get a 4 goals and be signed long-term to the Canucks.
Or he'll never get a full night's sleep for the rest of his professional hockey career, and he'll disappear into the dark night.
Yeah, I mean, both are very valid options, and I like Paul for keeping it, a realistic approach to parenting.
Feel for you, parents. I mean, I don't have kids. I've just heard stories.
So, speaking of children, speaking of the youth of tomorrow, we won't talk about the Maple Leafs just yet.
Yeah.
But the youngest, most impressionable boy was signed by the Vancouver Canucks on Sunday. Quinn, is it Quinton or is it just Quinn?
He goes by Quinn, but the full name is Quinton, just like your full name is Ryan Staffer. Aren't you glad your parents shortened it to Ryan instead of Topher?
Oh my God, that would have been embarrassing.
Topher Shap.
How did you know about? Oh, I guess you saw my driver's license.
If I ever meet a Ryan, I'll ask what it's short for.
Ryan Staffer,
Ryan.
Cornell
I was like,
Shap.
well, my friend Ryan Staffer.
Wow, how exotic. He sounds very wealthy and industrious.
So I think like draft day, someone said Quinton Hughes. And ever since, I don't think I've heard it. I don't know if he even corrected them, but yeah, he goes by Quinn, and that should be welcome in Vancouver, a town where Pat Quinn made a name for himself as both a player and a manager and a coach.
He needs to start telling people he was named after Pat Quinn.
Yeah.
Just like Lyndon Vey had so much success here because people believed he was named after Trevor Linden.
Exactly. And you can prolong your career by a couple of seasons simply by doing that.
Well, he's terrible, but his first name's pretty good. All right, okay. Let's just keep him here another year.
Yeah.
Paul, what's the magic number with Quinton Hughes in the 2018-2019 season?
Well, I was going to say 43, but when you finish the statement, I guess I'll say 11.
I believe it's 10.
10 is the most?
Yes.
I meant 11 is like the bad number, sorry.
Well, then I guess, 10's the magic number, 11 is the...
Can't play more than 10 games, or he can, but he'll be eligible for the expansion draft selection.
Yeah.
Or
then
will
he'll
require...
go to Seattle and haunt the Canucks forever.
He'll require protection, and they'll probably protect him. I don't see him going downhill enough.
We want you to play 11 games, and then we're not protecting you.
Ah, man, how did we not see this one coming?
It should be an easy one, in my opinion, in the sense of he was injured recently in college ball. He just arrived.
Right.
Will practice with the team the first time, I think, tomorrow.
He's gonna get He's gonna get his ankle checked out first. Yeah.
He's getting his ankle checked out, and then there's like a further examination later in the week, I believe, like Friday.
Oh, I didn't hear about that.
So he's not playing his first game against the Rangers?
I am speculating here that he will not, and I don't have any inside knowledge, so don't take this to the bank. But I'm thinking...
Hang on. Let me clip this for the clickbait.
I'm thinking they will hold him out unless they're 100% sure he's healthy or whatever.
Right.
If I were in charge, though, I would hold him out for the Rangers game and probably the Devils game as well, but not make it public so people buy tickets thinking they're going to be there for his debut. But sorry, no, we thought about it, but injury.
Just keep sending him out for warm-up.
Yeah. Maybe
alone.
But you got the excuse, the injury thing. Playing with a new team, if the D was healthy, this would probably be more likely to happen. Maybe they'll throw him in just because right now they're playing the Utica Comets defense, and they're already pretty rough before the Utica Comets join this core.
This organization does love to lean on he can't play a game. He hasn't had a full practice yet. And they use that a lot. I believe with Demko this year.
Because he's never practiced anywhere else ever before.
And he needs to...
You know, with defensemen and goalies, I know some will have good games when they arrive in a new organization, but you will see more often weird little miscommunications because those 6 guys need to know their goaltenders.
Yeah, for sure.
And where they're going to drop pucks and when the goalie's going to do this and that. So if anyone does, it's and because they want to hold him out so he doesn't play too many games, it's really easy to cut 2 or 3 off right here off the bat.
Perfect excuse,
There's
too.
a lot of pressure on this kid coming in right now.
I was there you would not believe this, but for the first time in maybe months, I listened to AM talk radio today.
Okay.
And
you found it.
I found it. I found the old one, the one that they can't say NHL or Canucks on it.
Okay.
And there is just this gigantic hype for ever since Paul. You've been harping on it all year, guys. Players look great when they're playing against boys, but that we don't.
You keep bringing that up,
but it makes me think about it more and more. Like you can look so good in the college ball. Birdcage league, you can look so good in the Canadian Hockey League, but until you're actually playing against teams that are in the stretch drive, that are trying to make the playoffs, that's a different beast, and it's going to be. I think it could be quite the culture shock for him.
You've quoted me twice now, where you're taking my concept, but you're changing it a bit because part of my thing is. The guys that get the unfair advantage, it is definitely not the same for Quinn Hughes. But it's more so sometimes a shock to the system of the guys that are gigantic.
Oh, for sure.
Playing amongst youngsters who are physically far more developed than the majority of their competition. Whereas Quinn Hughes is on the opposite end of that scale.
He's a big boy. 6'6", I think.
He's 5'10" in the books, which means he's probably 5'8".
Yeah, he's Pat Kane's
He's
size.
been doing everything he does, despite the fact he's one of the smallest guys on the ice. So that, to me, actually is a good point
for sure. Yeah,
if you're moving on to pro, because you've already learned how to play being at a disadvantage size-wise.
Right.
It will be tougher, 100% in every sense of the term, but it's not quite the same as a Tom Sestito, who's probably. Coasted somewhat his last couple of years of junior hockey because he can physically just push kids over and, set up in the slot, no problem. And then all of a sudden he's like, whoa, these guys, they're not as big as me, but they can kind of push me out of the way.
What's going on here?
I haven't had to deal with this since I was 14. That's where that point I made a few weeks ago.
No, but I mean, it's just I like to think about it more and more as we get so much more excited and invested in prospects.
Oh yeah,
and like we are as a Canucks fan base, we are in the midst of just Quinn Hughes was drafted 7th overall. He's a defenseman. He's supposed to be like this. All the projections say that. Now be that. And life doesn't always work that way. Mm-mm. And it's just something, you have to have a rational, realistic approach that he can do everything right, but until he, plays 60 minutes or more in the NHL, like it's going to be, we don't know what he's going to do.
And even then, from game to game, especially with a young defenseman that young, expect the next 4 or 5 years to have its ups and downs.
Yeah.
Because defensemen take a while to develop, typically.
Look at Erik Karlsson.
So, yeah, don't be overly critical. Even Olli Juolevi is a good example of, you look at that draft class, he's the only one left in the top 16 or 17 or something who haven't played any NHL games.
Okay.
But he has had these injury problems and all these weird
allegations.
But he's a defenseman, and he's still only, 21 or whatever?
Yeah.
He's still the type of guy that could be a late bloomer, or because of the injuries, it's not even fully that. We're at 23, 24. You look at, Hedman, it's not the same thing. Hedman was good when he came in, but a lot of people were like, he shouldn't have been the first overall pick. He's not that good. And then around 25, 26, all of a sudden, he's one of the most dominant defensemen in the NHL.
It's that slow burn we all predicted.
So, yeah, I'm with you in the sense of, people need to be patient. Don't expect too much from Quinn Hughes. He might surprise us, though. You never know.
No, this is a city that needs instant gratification. We don't have patience.
No, we really don't.
They do need patience. They don't have it, but they need it.
There you go.
As a whole. Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see what happens with it. It is more just a gimmick than anything. But as I said, they got to lock him down. If he wants to go pro, sign him when he wants to sign, because NCAA players have a bit of an advantage when it comes to contracts.
The Vancouver Canucks season more or less died on Saturday night. Were you watching the game?
Didn't it die 2 weeks ago or so?
No, they beat the Toronto Maple Leafs in overtime and
then everybody's hopes got up high.
I don't know if they got up too high. We're like, there you go. That's how you play hockey. You work hard. And then they lost the next night in Edmonton, and then with
you almost believed that they would come back then too.
Yeah. Well, I mean, the Toronto Maple Leafs, who are limping their way into the postseason, were up 3-0 against the Edmonton Oilers, and with under a minute and a half or whatever was left, they were up 3-0, and Edmonton put up 2 goals and made a very good chance to tie it 3-2, or sorry, tie it 3-3. But they were written off at the trade deadline because everybody around them got better. Well, Boston got better.
Right.
And now they lost. They got embarrassed at home to the best team in the world, the Tampa Bay Lightning. So I'm starting to think that with all this negativity on their side, they will slay the dragon this year.
Yeah.
And
the pressure might be off because people's expectations will have already been lowered.
Yep.
They're written off already. You look at...
Haven't they got a few bodies coming back from injury now? I haven't looked at the Leafs, actually. Anyway, but I think, Jake Gardner, he's been out of the lineup for a while. Is he still... Anyway. Eastern Conference. I only catch the Toronto Maple Leafs once every 3 or 4 weeks.
Don't worry, they'll be on TV every night for 2 weeks.
Yeah, Jake Gardner, Travis
even
Dermott,
on the off nights.
And Kasperi Kapanen are their injuries.
So
is Kadri back?
Let me look at the starting lineup. Kadri did start on the third line tonight with Pat Marleau and Connor Brown.
They could get some reinforcements soon, and a couple bodies can make a big impact in a game. And you're seeing it. St. Louis right now is going to struggle to make it through the next couple of weeks without Vladimir Tarasenko.
Vlad.
A lot of teams that are right on the cusp like that, if they can make it to the playoffs, all of a sudden, well, we did it without him. Mm-hmm. And sometimes it could be a boost to them to all of a sudden get these bodies back. You
know who loves that Vladimir Tarasenko injury? The Arizona Coyotes, who are up. They're a point back, and then if the Blues start losing games, and that wild card spot in the West will open up, and they'll somehow, as their novelty T-shirt says, scratching and clawing to the playoffs. As opposed to being a bunch of jerks, they're promoting their hard work and determination.
Got it.
God bless those Yotes. Yeah, that was a horrible, piss-poor game against the Vegas Golden Knights on Saturday night. With 5 minutes to go in the first period, the Canucks are down 5-1.
To be fair, they only let in 1 goal the rest of the night. So, I mean, small victories. Small victories, am I right?
They won the next 2 periods. Is that what you're saying?
Technically, they tied because it was a 6-2 final.
But, it looked really bad. And then the Knights eased up, and it didn't look as bad.
And then I always make this comparison, but they remind me of, because we were so immersed in them when the Canucks were very good, and it was the easy night against Arizona, where they could take their foot off the gas for 2 periods, and like, oh shit, all right, we got to win this.
Yeah.
Oh, where'd my watch go? But you could totally tell with Ryan Reeves in the intermission with Scott Oak just palling around and watching videos of him dance. Hey, do you want to talk about this big intense game you're in, or do you want to watch a video of you dancing at a wedding? Well, let's talk about the dancing video at the wedding. Like they didn't give a shit about this
As
team.
in they've written off Vancouver.
I believe so. I was starting to get that sense with them, but
it was a different second intermission compared to was it the Toronto one when Dan Murphy suggested you might lose the game for the first time after leading after 40 minutes. And whoever he was
Ron
Hainsey is like, thanks. And then it happened. So, I mean, Reeves, that's the way to do it. Just confidence.
Yeah.
Just steamroll over whatever the reporter wants to talk about.
No.
And then after the game,
talk about me.
Yeah. do his hair and makeup while he's trying to host the post-game show.
Was he doing that?
Yeah, Scott Oak was hosting after hours down in the hallway, and Reeves came up behind him, had taped a piece of paper to his chest that said hair and makeup, and came up to Scott and sprayed a bunch of hairspray all over him, and then started combing his hair back and forth. And it was funny, but
those two have actually a really good rapport now.
And they grew up. They grew up together. Well, I mean, grew
he
up.
grew up
they were
next door,
neighbors.
Yeah.
It's very heartwarming.
Mm-hmm.
Did he have a shirt on?
Yes, he had a shirt with a piece of paper taped to it.
I thought maybe he went tarp off, scotch tape to his chest.
He didn't that time, but maybe next time.
It's an audio only podcast, Paul. So
it's chilly in Vancouver these days. Maybe when they're back down to the Nevada deserts.
Are the Vegas Golden Knights going to win the Stanley Cup?
Like I've expressed concerns in recent weeks about how much they're playing Marc-Andre Fleury, who's not even in the lineup right now. They're getting cocky.
Yeah, how are they playing him and he's not in the line? What are you saying?
Well, his wife is due.
Oh, okay.
So she's in. I think in the coming weeks. He was the backup last night. They played the Calgary Flames on Sunday,
right?
And Malcolm Subban was the goalie. He let in.
They did play back-to-back games though, so I mean, I think that would have happened whether or not Fleury was becoming a father.
I mean, but Malcolm Subban didn't look that good. He came out rusty, and then
he is the lesser Subban.
That's true. He is the middle of the three by a long shot.
Oh yeah, middle. Sorry, for a second I thought you were saying he was the bottom of the three. It's like, wow, you are still high on Jordan Subban. I had some hope for that kid, but. Not hearing anything these days.
If you didn't see the game, one of the more interesting things I've seen, which was Malcolm Subban was complaining to one of the refs about how whatever it was a call or it was a disallowed or a loud goal. They went upstairs and they reversed it, and he was jawing at him like a manager at an umpire in a baseball game.
Okay.
And right up there looking for almost a headbutt, and they gave him a 2-minute minor penalty to start the third period. And they were only down by 1, and Calgary came right out and blasted them. So the holes are there. There is a definite weakness when Lafleur is not in the lineup.
And that's it. Like he is. People were talking about. He just set another way past Jacques Plante, I think, in the all-time wins list.
Most French goalie, I believe, isn't it?
But is he not the eighth on that list or something like that now?
Well, he passed Plante. I forget which spot he actually holds now, but it's around 8. Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's the type of thing. Like, I'm not saying he's not a good goalie. If anybody thinks that's what I'm saying, I'm just there's a certain line, and you're playing with fire. At this point, you're going to make the playoffs. I would play Subban as much as possible and save Fleury for the playoffs, and maybe they will now that he's had this baby. But that's the other thing. I talked about this just a second ago. If a guy has a baby, that's throwing a whole other new wrench into the woodwork.
Paul, your vision of parenthood is just darkness and
no, I think it's
sleep
great.
deprived.
But I've heard there's a lot of
that he's basically played himself out of the league by having a child. I think is how Paul put it.
It's adding another element to your life.
Yeah,
as a professional athlete,
they have kids.
I know.
This isn't his first either.
I talked to somebody recently, and they wanted to do a more extensive research thing.
Right.
But there were several players who had a sharp drop-off in their career.
Yeah.
And this person in the media had looked into it, and all of them had like their first or second child around the time the drop-off happened.
Oh, yeah.
And it's not uncommon.
That Patrick Waugh won a Stanley Cup while his wife was in labor.
It's not an absolute. The same thing with playing Fleury as much as the Knights are playing him right now. It's just like you're adding all these little things where it's like potential for a change there, potential for a change there. And if we see Fleury drop off in the playoffs, as we've seen in previous seasons, there's that much more chance for that to happen.
Maybe Matt Murray can pick up the slack.
He's always great for that. Yeah, Paul, I don't know what you're worrying about. Matt Murray.
I'm just saying, a very good team.
Yeah.
Not definitely coming out of the West, I think. Like, they could, but I wouldn't go out of my way to, like, wager all of my money on them.
Who would you wager all of your money on to win the Stanley Cup?
Not even Tampa Bay.
Okay, because I have an interesting little statistic here. And it's about how damn good the Tampa Bay Lightning are. And they needed just 68 games to clinch a playoff spot. Mm-hmm. And that was tying the record for second fastest in the Cap era, which is the 08-09 San Jose Sharks. The 09-10 Capitals did in just 67 games.
Right.
Both those teams were eliminated in the first round.
Well, Vancouverites aren't that far removed from seeing a team win the President's Trophy and lose in the first round. That was only 2012.
It's a curse.
I don't know. Why is that? Is it just... Well, they took a while. They didn't win that President's Trophy until like the last game or the second last game. But to make the
still like, if not the best team, they were above, considered, within whatever the top 3 or 4 that year. Like, it's one of those things. So much can happen in the course of an 82-game regular season. You got your handful of preseason games, and then potentially a ton of postseason games as well. Yep. There's so much about when you hit your stride in an NHL season, and which of your players show up. And who you meet in the playoffs. I've said, like, Vegas was very good last year. Mm-hmm. They also had one of the easier routes you could probably get to the Stanley Cup final. Like,
LA
and San Jose were
Winnipeg.
probably 2 of the weaker teams that made the playoffs out of the 16. Mm-hmm. And then they hit Winnipeg, who looked like they completely died after the first game because of the Nashville series.
They were just coming in like...
So it's just... That's part of hockey, though. It's not taking away. Lots of teams have probably won the Stanley Cup based on having a couple of gimme rounds in the playoffs. But yeah, President's Trophy winning teams sometimes aren't hitting their stride at the end of the season because the President's Trophy is a 7-month award or whatever.
Mm-hmm. I'm very curious because everything has gone so perfectly, and I've been saying this for weeks, but I want to watch. Like, you get a hot team. Like, if I don't know who they would play. It's gonna be like the Habs or maybe the Jackets.
Have the Habs dropped out of the playoffs? They have not been great lately.
I forget who it is right now, but it's the Jackets, the Habs. They're kind of swimming around there.
Sure.
Pittsburgh. You get a team that's
Carolina.
hot. Yeah, you get a team that's hot and that's gonna put an effort in.
A hot goalie can change a whole series.
Yep.
You never know. That's why they play the games. And Tampa Bay, again, we talked about, they're not the biggest team.
That's the thing. You accidentally lose a couple of games in overtime at home, and suddenly it's a different series.
Absolutely. I mean, they lost a 1-0 game or whatever it was, to in the East Finals last year.
Yeah.
Like things are tight. And it's been beaten to death. But if the Ottawa Senators, blocked a shot in Game 7 against the Pittsburgh Penguins, they would have gone to the Stanley Cup final and lost to the San Jose Sharks. Can you imagine that Stanley Cup final?
That would have been good that year.
Who would have won that?
Don't know.
Good Lord.
Whoever got hot.
Who? Here's another thing about how hot the Tampa Bay Lightning are. Nikita Kucherov has broken the Lightning franchise record for most points in the season with 100. He surpassed Vinny LeCavalier with the previous record of 108. He now has 110. And
13 games to play, so he's not done.
It's now 12 games. I don't know how many points he got tonight, but that's goddamn ridiculous. And he's in the midst of his bridge deal.
What's a bridge deal?
It's where you're pretty good, but we don't want to give you.
This is only pretty good.
Yeah, this is what's so.
No, before this is why he didn't get a long-term deal, because he would have gotten one if he had had this season before he signed the deal.
Got it.
So I don't even know when this contract's up, but he is on his bridge deal of, I think it's like a 4-year deal or something.
Okay.
And yeah, it's like, well, let's see if you can get to that elite level. Well, he got there really quickly, and now he's going to get the moon whenever that next deal is.
Yeah. So it'll be interesting to see how they massage their cap situation.
Offer sheet.
Someone's going to offer sheet him, you think?
Oh, God. I mean, if Jimbo knows how to do that.
That'd be something.
Oh, you could do that? Oh, well, let's give that a try. Here's some depressing stats about the...
Ooh, let Paul give them.
The Pittsburgh Penguins, Paulie.
Depressing stats about the Pittsburgh Penguins. Well, not depressing for the Pittsburgh Penguins. That's the part you're wanting me to read?
It might be a bit of a downer for the Florida Panthers, too.
Jared McCann was traded for Erik Gudbranson. They are now both Pittsburgh Penguins.
Interesting turn of events.
Jared McCann has 6 goals and 3 assists in 18 points? That's games, right?
18 games.
Are there
I am
people
just reading
on
a
Canucks
script.
Twitter who wish we still had Jared McCann?
There's a fair bit.
There's a lot of folks, for obvious reasons, that didn't like Erik Gudbranson.
Right.
So it's not so much you really want to still have Jared McCann. You're just like, well, I'd just rather have not traded him for Erik Gudbranson. It's kind of like Michael Grabner, who got waived by Florida after he got traded to Florida, and then had a really good year in New York that year.
Right.
But it was more like, well, it's not that we really want Michael Grabner that badly. We just don't want Keith Ballard. It's basically the same situation.
Yeah.
Except Grabner did it without Sidney Crosby.
So, yeah, Jared McCann, he won the lottery.
Right.
He's somebody that could keep up and play and think at the same level in some way or another with Sid. He's been on the same line with him for about I don't know, about a month or so.
That's quite the gift.
Yeah. The last person we saw do this was Connor Sheary.
Right.
And then he got a big contract. Then a year later was traded to Buffalo, where he's kind of he's human.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. He's a regular guy.
Mm-hmm.
He's not playing with one of the best players in the world, so he's putting up.
He's not riding coattails.
No, he's. If anything, he's like, why are people trying to ride my coattails?
So what the Canucks should have been doing with their Anson Carter type of guys is pump their tires for a year, but have signed him to a 2-year deal, and then you flip him the next year for way more than he's worth, or redeem Verbata. and that's what the
very smart strategy.
The Penguins have kind of been doing that in a way where they take a decent winger, you play him with one of your big centers, and then you flip him for somebody you like better because you know your guy's stats have been inflated.
That's how you turn a paperclip into a house.
Yeah, that's how us on the West Coast go. God, if we only had Brian Rust on our team, huh?
Don't we?
Well, yeah, we do. Have you seen him play with Sid or Gino?
No, the Canucks got Tanner Pearson in the conversation. Although he didn't look that great with Crosby and Malkin, so that might be a warning sign.
I'm just making a realization here.
Yeah.
Tanner Pearson was brought in to Pittsburgh from another team to try and find some chemistry with the big two and couldn't, so they shipped him off to Vancouver. Mm-hmm. Brandon Sutter was traded to Pittsburgh to find some chemistry to play underneath those big two and they couldn't really do it, so they shipped him off to Vancouver.
Yeah, if you're taking a guy from Pittsburgh, stop taking the guys that weren't able to make it work.
So okay, let's just figure this out. Okay, let's make a list.
Yeah.
Okay, guys from Pittsburgh, you do take 87, 71,
Okay.
58.
He has some injury
You're
issues.
right. Okay, so 71 and 58 and 87. Sorry, 81.
I mean, maybe JR. That's the guy I'd pull out of Pittsburgh.
You a big fan of that guy? You like the cut of his jib?
Yeah.
Okay, so we're set. If
Okay.
you're gonna trade with the Pittsburgh Penguins, you take 87 or 71. Anybody else? No one? Think we got them all?
Yeah, that's
I think
probably
you're okay.
Okay. Just let's just. I want that out there in the ether.
Big 7, Jack Johnson.
As we will it to happen.
Yeah, big 44.
No, we don't want him. We want Jack Johnson. Laka We want Jack Johnson.
Can you imagine having a bottom six, having a decor with Jack Johnson and Luke Shen on it?
Big money.
Here's a stat about Erik Gudbranson.
Okay.
I'm sure if somebody that follows the fancy stats will doubt it because I just copy and pasted it off Reddit, but there was a graph, so it had to be true. He's leading the Penguins in CF percentage. What's that, Paul?
Corsi.
At 57.2% through 6 games, as well as Fenwick with 59%. He also boasts a PDO of 105.6.
You're breaking this fancy stats rule so often these days.
Those are
I've
just
tried-
letters in the alphabet.
I've tried to keep it when I talk about those. I'm just like, the underlying stats are good or the underlying stats are bad. That's when I talk about it in that sense on the show. That's about as deep as I go.
I found that quite funny that you get Erik Gudbranson of old
What's his BMI?
body. Oh, probably
I'm kidding.
sexy.
It's a very. You have to look at it over the course of a season.
Yeah, it's a tiny sample.
It's the
size.
type of thing where Luke Shen, when he came into Vancouver, was putting up ridiculously good numbers the first couple games.
Did they sign him to a 7x7 after
Probably,
that?
probably.
They
But
gave him the C.
Yeah.
he's leveled off down to being just a little bit above Erik Gudbranson. He's still putting up better underlying stats in Vancouver than Gudbranson did in the same situations, but they're not great.
And somehow Gudbranson's playing 20 minutes a game because their defense is so hurt. So we've said this for many years, a whole lot of Lucas Spiza, not good. A little bit of Lucas Spiza,
Right.
okay. Same formula.
Yeah.
Crappiness over ice time divided by, bumbliness equals, this is our formula. But that applies to Erik Gudbranson.
Well, when the trade happened, I think I said essentially, I think he's got the skill set.
Right.
I think he's got the abilities to be a very good defenseman in the NHL, but he might need someone to be making adjustments. Going into a new team, he's probably getting some new advice, different advice from different coaching staff. He's probably that much more into accepting that type of advice in a new situation. A lot of players will have a good week, 2 weeks, month right after a deal because there's something that pushes some adrenaline into your system when you're in a new situation. I always loved Vadim Sherifyanov. Looked amazing in his first game as a Canuck. People were like, "Oh my, where's this guy been our whole lives? He looks like he could be another Pavel Bure." And then he disappeared and you never heard of him again.
Don't you think if you were in Erik Gudbranson's shoes and you went from the Canucks to the goddamn Pittsburgh Penguins, Sidney
Even
Crosby,
in their current state of maybe missing the playoffs, they have a lot of bodies in there that you're like, "Oh, I'm practically on a all-star team here."
there's 3.5 guys going to the Hall of Fame on that team.
It's a little night and day, and I'm sure the culture is a little different, and the expectations there are different.
And if they're healthy, he will be playing a reduced role, what he should be playing. He might have a very good career in Pittsburgh. He'll be overpaid for a bottom-pairing defenseman, but
Yeah.
if they can afford to pay
But
him
that's
that.
kind of the ideal situation. I
Yeah.
play in the NHL. I make a shit ton of money.
I play for the Pittsburgh Penguins, and I do my best to protect Sidney Crosby so people love me.
Yeah.
And I'm guessing he has the potential to be an upgrade on a Jack Johnson, who's been the whipping boy in Pittsburgh for a long time.
Maybe they should trade him to Vancouver. Wait, no.
Great. Now that's going to happen.
Crap, now that's out in the ether, too.
That's a way to weaponize some cap space, right? Taking on Jack Johnson. And then he can take over as the locker room DJ for
July 1st. Who did Vancouver sign? Oh, Jack Johnson.
I think Jack Johnson's locked down for another 2 or 3 years.
Don't
in
worry.
Pittsburgh.
The Canucks would find a way to get him.
There's a buyout coming, and the Canucks will.
We re-signed him, but he's got 3 years left. We want to lock that down. But what I was thinking, like, if I went to a team and there's Sidney Crosby and Geno Malkin and all those cups and Mario's upstairs, like, I'm gonna do everything in my power to play the absolute best. I'm not gonna look like an idiot in front of Sid. Like, I don't want to do that. Come on.
So the Canucks just need to wait for Elias Pettersson to get that kind of clout with other players around the league where people come and go, I can't embarrass myself in front of Elias.
Well, I mean, the Sedins kind of had that clout for a bit.
It's true. Yeah. Can't embarrass yourself in front of the Sedins.
Yeah. And the Canucks don't have that right now. They have... Bo doesn't want us to embarrass ourselves in front of him, but if we do, who's going to do anything about it? Luke Shen?
You almost want to embarrass yourself just to antagonize Bo just a little bit.
What's he going to do this week?
I feel like I have to be like extra pro Bo lately because I wasn't even trying to be critical of him originally.
You are our Bo.
I am the Bo. But like I was just trying to bring up early in the season, like, we can't just assume that he's the most respected guy in the room. You're putting that on him. You're not in that room. And then that turned into like, now we just shit on Bo all the time. And I'm like, that's not what I meant. I just meant the players should pick who they want as the captain.
Well, now I see the video of them passive aggressively or like jokingly refer to him as Cap.
Right.
So I think that if from what I can judge and if I can jump to conclusions with no fact whatsoever that he thinks he is the captain.
They should just do an Instagram poll. Get it over with.
On the slider?
Yeah.
On the hotness slider? Who gets to be captain?
He's the Captain America in the locker room. You know, if Brock and Elias are two of the other Avengers, he's the one that's like the goody two-shoes that they make fun of for being a goody two-shoes, even though they're all superheroes. Anyway, that's my nerdy reference for the day.
I like it. So Erik Gudbranson, he's good at hockey. Yeah. All of a sudden.
Yeah.
Do you think Bo Police is swearing like Cap does with the Avengers?
There's a swear jar. You can find out on.
Yeah, can you look around the dressing room?
I'll just ask them.
And it's like, it's over there.
It's in the drawer next to the bubble gum.
We can't have any bubble gum.
You got to be careful after the game because there is a drawer full of bubble gum, and I've been standing next to it, and the players come up and have to ask a few of us to move because they need their double bubble fix after the game.
You got in there and pocketed a couple?
I haven't, but I've seen some of the veteran reporters do it.
You want to name names?
No, I'm not established enough in the industry that I'm gonna start naming names.
Ian McIntyre, bubblegum thief.
It was not Ian McIntyre.
That was
if you write it down, Ryan and I'll name names.
Just blink twice.
Maybe if you buy me a big bag of double bubbles, we'll see what we can do.
I know where there's a big drawer, but we can get it for free.
But can you get into that drawer?
No, not anymore.
Not with that attitude.
Yes, I will get into the candy drawer.
Speaking of the Canucks locker room, my mom said she was talking to someone the other day, and they're like, "What's your oldest son doing these days?" And she goes, "Oh, he works at the Canucks games." And they're like, "It's like selling popcorn."
Aw, that's adorable.
And my mom's like, "No, he interviews players and coaches." And they're like, "Huh?" And I was like, "No, what you've got to do from now on is when people say that, then you go, no, he's the third line center for the Canucks. Don't you follow hockey?"
Who is the third?
He's that new call up. Yeah, he wears 88.
Adam Pauly Gaudette.
You know, if someone's a casual fan, they can't read the name bars on the ice. They're so tiny.
If they said like you were,
I want to introduce you that way now.
Give it a try.
Tim Schaller, you could be like he wears, or Tyler Mott, like he wears 64 for the Canucks.
One of those guys that no casual fan probably is overly aware of.
If you told me you were Jay Beagle, I'd probably believe it.
Well, I mean, he could.
Tyler Mott's a good one. I'm bigger than Tyler Mott. I'm not saying I could beat him up. He'd totally wipe the floor with me.
Hang on. Let me clip that for the click.
Damn it.
P Mac will beat up Tyler Mott.
You just said that if I were to pose
He's
as someone,
bigger
he'd
than
be the
him.
guy. So I'm just saying, like, I'm not a big guy like an NHLer, but there are guys on the team that aren't huge. So yeah, maybe I could just say I'm one of those,
It's the new
average-sized
NHL.
NHLers.
Everyone's like 5'10" and 160.
It's like Hollywood.
Yeah.
Works for me.
Paul's got lifts in his skates.
Yeah. Here's an interesting stat about forgetful Canucks. Since the middle of February, Alex Biega has the most assists. Now that's a bit of a skinny or
deceiving.
Yeah, deceiving as nobody scores goals for the Canucks anymore. But he's got 7 assists in 12 games, while Petey and Brock have 6.
Yeah, and he's played some games as a forward for the Canucks. Like, he is the type of guy that's a little more... In the AHL, he's like an offensive defenseman. In the NHL,
he plays
people
one.
get a little frustrated.
What do you want? Switch players.
He takes a few more risks than you probably should at the NHL level, but at the same time, in an offense-starved team, it's kind of nice to see somebody still have the confidence to, try to go end-to-end from the blue line.
Yeah. Well, he doesn't. I kind of like what he does because he doesn't give a fuck. He's like, I know this season's over. I'm gonna try and do some Bobby Orr stuff. Who's gonna get mad at me? What are they gonna do? Send me to Utica? They can't send me to Utica.
No, they need him.
Who's gonna play defense? Travis
need
Green?
him more than he needs them at this point.
Yeah, there aren't too many more bodies they can call up from the farm team, even with Quinn Hughes.
Green, I'm not back checking tonight. All right, we'll just put you in offensive situations. It'll be fine.
You do you.
See, Alex Biega's got it figured out. And this gumption, this positive can-do, do-whatever-I-want attitude, it's going to get him a 7x7, just like Jack Johnson next year.
I don't know about that, but he could probably go to somewhere like Carolina and be, look, I put up 20 points on the Vancouver Canucks blue line.
They'll give him $1 raise because they're such cheapskates.
Think about what I can do for you. And check out my dance moves.
I haven't seen Viega's dance moves, so...
Neither have I.
But we've seen the Carolina Hurricanes.
Oh.
Actually,
I was thinking that was referencing back to the Ryan Reeves thing, and I'm like, well, I know Ryan Reeves can dance, but can Alex Biega?
Do you want to dissect this game clip, or do you want us to watch this wedding video? What do you think, Scotty? Come on. Messing up your little hair.
I like Ryan Reeves.
I love Ryan
Reeves.
Reeves.
Lovable guy.
Yeah, he's everybody's favorite fourth line winger.
He's overpaid for what he does, but he does.
NHLers are.
By God, does he look good doing it?
Yeah, it's all the little things he does off the ice, like bother Scott Oak.
I would pay a man $1.5 million to bother Scott Oak.
If you had that much money.
Well, if Patreon donors up their game.
Yeah, come on, boys and ladies and people in general. We need to get some money to pester Scott Oak. Here's the other thing. We kind of think the Vegas Golden Knights are last year's Golden Knights because they have the exact same top line.
Okay.
Riley Smith, William Karlsson, and Jonathan Marchessault,
sure.
the Fancy Stats poster boy.
Mm-hmm.
I kind of forget that they have a manufactured super second line of Max Pacioretty,
Paul
Stastny, and Mark Stone.
Yeah. That's an exciting looking line.
And Antoine Roussel, who I'm learning to love, or I'm growing to love more and more. I'm learning to love you.
Please say this with an accent.
A French accent. Let me throw this, the Maginot line. Art in the corner. Where is it? I got to find it. Antoine, they have Cody Eakin on the third line. He'd be on their top line here.
Possibly.
And
yes.
he said that after they got decimated, and like their depth is ridiculous, and they have this supercharged second line, and which was their biggest problem against the Capitals, a deep team.
Right.
And now you have a deep team.
Yeah, last year you had some overachieving guys that put up some big numbers comparable to what their second line are doing right now. But it's like Tuck, who's down to the third line now.
Or James Neal.
Yeah.
James Neal and there's, what's his name that was on their old second line that's injured now that had good chemistry with Tuck. I'm totally blanking out on. He's been out like all year, so that's, he's out of sight, out of mind.
Buy me like 6 seconds.
They're not.
Just do a plug.
So, if you're looking for great food around Yaletown,
Erik Halua?
Yeah, holla.
Holla?
Ain't no holla back.
Great food around Yaletown. You couldn't have just plugged Patreon or something?
Last year they were a surprise. This year they're not. I mean, they're a good team. They're just not surprisingly good.
Well, they did kind of surprise us where we're like, around January, we're like, holy shit, Marc-Andre Fleury's got a lot of wins. Yeah, but they're not going to do anything.
But they're viewed differently this year because they were so good last year. But last year they were the expansion team, so we were more curious about it. Now they're in the mix.
We're like, that's cute. You cute little guys playing well. And now we're like, oh.
Now you're a legit team.
Oh.
Like the shine is worn off, but now you're like, oh, you're good. Like everybody else that's good is good.
They are very good.
I mean, I feel like by the end of last year, most people in the hockey world had accepted, like, okay, so rather than build up to something big, they're going to be big now because they were able to pick up the quality of players they were in the expansion draft.
Correct.
And they meshed well, which you weren't 100% sure on. I personally am expecting them to be very good for probably about 5-6 years before we see a drop from being a playoff team that could, if they're not a favorite every year, they will be a team that could be a dark horse at the very least.
But that's like a cycle for any team. You're good for like a solid 5-6 years, and then there's a little bit of drop off. Yeah.
And most expansion teams have been put in a situation in the past that they have to build up to it.
Correct.
They had the choice. And I remember when we were talking about sort of like, who would we take if we were the general manager? And Dave brought up some good points where some of us were looking at the good players in the expansion draft going, they could have this player and this player and this player. And he was like, they might not want to go full good right away because it ends up costing you in the long run. So you can have a really good team. No one would have probably expected a Stanley Cup final, but you could have a playoff team off the bat, or you could have like a, old school Pittsburgh Penguins, Chicago Blackhawks build up if you are willing to, build up to that.
Right.
Take more draft picks for agreeing not to take more players, but they kind of got both. But they have been trading young assets off now because they realize now's their window. Well, and it's probably better to do that, win over some fans, and then hope they don't disappear when inevitably they will have a few rough years.
When the football team shows up.
Well, there's that too. But yeah, it'll be interesting to see how the fans handle it because this is probably the first expansion team we've ever seen in the NHL who started this hot and will be able to sustain it. And then they'll eventually will have some rough years and people will be like, what? Hockey doesn't involve winning 3/4 of the games and a deep playoff run every year? I am outraged. I am never coming back to these games. I don't think that'll happen, but there will be some really upset fans that have never experienced heartbreak, like some people who grew up in other cities around the National Hockey League.
It's fine.
We don't know what else to feel.
Sadness.
Well, aren't you all...
That's the perpetual state in which we live.
An anxiety of impending sadness.
Aren't you all numb to, lack of success in professional sports at this point in the city?
Absolutely. Nobody expected anything good.
Give me the West Final, and then my heart my heart grows 5 sizes that day.
Yeah, I don't get how some people get so upset when you look on Twitter, especially lately. The other thing too is people calling for like fire Benning. And I'm not opposed to the idea of bringing in a new manager at this point. So don't get me wrong. But the other side of it is like, where did this sudden heavy fire Benning sentiment come from? Because the team is doing exactly what I was expecting them to do at this point in the season. Like early on.
Spiraling out of control.
They're upset that they didn't take their shitty players and trade them for first and second round picks at the deadline, obviously.
Everyone's first and second round pick.
And then they're mad that those shitty players were not better, exciting, sexier properties that they could have traded for higher picks.
There have been mistakes in the past, but yeah I don't get the sudden, and some people have been consistently fire Benning for a long time, but there's been a sudden uptick, I guess, in that. And it's like most of the mistakes that have been made go further back than the last couple of months.
Yes.
Are you just now coming to that realization,
Yeah,
I
but
guess?
Benning still made those mistakes.
Oh, yeah. It's just interesting how suddenly, I guess, it struck some of the fan base in the last few days, because I'm like, relative to where things were mid-season, and now it's like,
well, they've hated on everything else. Now they've got nothing left but to fire Benning. I mean, I'm talking about the fans.
Yes.
Yeah. Anyway,
I had a harsh realization around the deadline where if it's the same thing every year, just quit making 1-for-1 trades, get some sort of prospect, get some sort of draft pick, and he doesn't seem to be able to do that.
There's no assets to move, generally speaking.
I know, but
it's a weird space because realistically they probably should have, and now rumors are coming out that Gillis had a whole rebuild plan and was going to trade off a bunch of guys before Tortorella got fired, and ownership was like, nope, you're keeping all those guys and trying to get the Sedin's a cup, and you're bringing in a veteran coach. They should probably bring in a veteran coach. They should probably throw all the money at Joel Quenneville right now. The fact he hasn't signed elsewhere, if there's any chance they can get a guy like that. It's not anything against Travis Green, but it's like,
if we could have him for 7 for 7.
Yeah.
If you can lock down.
Green's
Barry Trotz would have been great back in the day, but one of these veteran coaches who isn't known for being like totally old school.
That's their problem. They'd be like, Mark Crawford, we like what you did in that sample size in Ottawa.
I'll wrap up the show here because we're going to do a little bit longer 5 minutes for paying. So I will just ask this question because we were talking about the fire betting movement. And Chris Faber asks us, if you could make 3 rules for Canucks Twitter, what would they be? And if you're spending a lot of time on the internet following the Canucks, it'd be rather toxic. So I will just say this, that you're allowed to like the team and take a word out of P Mac's vocab, to poop on the management. So it's not a hyper political environment. There's not one side or the other. You are allowed to, have critical opinions and still, want them to do well.
Okay.
And there's some people that do that, and then other people are critical of them for being critical at all.
Yeah.
It's a weird space. I would say there's no 3 rules I would give out.
No.
If I were to say something about Canucks Twitter, I think it'd be 3 words. Not even once.
I don't get it.
It's a meme. Like, people say something and don't even do it once.
Not
Just
even
stay
once.
away from it.
Oh, I like that. Yeah, not even once.
Sorry. Apparently that's not as widespread as I thought it
just
was.
feel like there's no reason to be so murderous. It's a sports team.
I like the most critical people on the internet. That if you talk to them IRL, which is kids speak for in real life, it's a much more sensible, open-minded, constructive conversation.
Yeah.
But when you have only 280 characters to tell somebody how stupid they are, there's no time to deviate from your point.
I think Ryan just broke down the issue with Canadian and even more so American politics these days.
Well, what can I say? I'm a pretty intelligent guy.
There you go.
I'll rattle
Pearls of wisdom.
Not Sean Avery. He asks, first player you want to see moved off at the draft or off season. I personally hate Marcus. Not personally. I can't stand having Marcus Granlund on the team anymore. I want him gone.
Okay.
He's another guy I was in favor of giving a shot for a long time, but I do feel like we've sort of reached a point where there are other players who are comparable but younger and cheaper.
Yeah.
And no, I agree. I looked at who I expect to be on the lineup next year and left a couple holes for a couple of new bodies they're probably going to bring in via trade or free agency.
Right.
And Granlund found his way on the outside of that list. So I'm with you on that.
And I didn't say Brandon Sutter because he never plays for the team.
No, but if he wasn't occupying a space.
Did you see I threw out a stat. Somebody at TSN Radio had said something about it feels like Sutter has played under 50% or something of the possible games he could have. So I actually did the math.
Okay.
And at the time of the tweet, it was 60%. He had played in 60% of all the games he could potentially have played for the Canucks. And by the end of the year, since he's out for the year, it'll be, I think, 56 or 57. So it's not that far off that he's only played about half the games he could.
So at this rate, he'll eventually just work himself down to 0%.
It's going to take a long time, but he'll get there.
That's how the math works, right?
Yeah. We'll see.
You'll round down.
If they could move him in the summer, just as trade him for whatever they can get just to get rid of him to a team that's looking for a depth guy.
Cap basement.
That would probably be the best thing they could do. But yeah, realistically, how much do you expect him to play? How much of the cap is he actually going to eat if he's on the IR for at least 25% of each of the next 2 seasons? Mm-hmm. He might not really be in the way of much happening with this team, even if he sticks around through the rest of the contract.
And one final question. This comes from Hawaiian Chels. My question is for P Mac. How is after the game media player availability determined, and how quickly does media get informed of that availability?
Okay, so it's different with every team.
Yeah.
The Canucks, I guess I see the most, obviously, since they're the home team, but I actually spend more time in the road room every game. The Canucks PR guys they'll write some numbers on the board who are the ones that are supposed to talk to the media. I usually just get the first one or two because I have to run over to the road room that opens shortly after the Canucks. It's usually Bo first or whoever had a big game. If they lose, it's Bo now, which is another sign that he might be the captain, but that's more in the eyes of the media than anything. But what I'll say is if you get a guy in the room after the game, even if he's not on that list, they'll talk to you. I don't think I've ever seen a Canucks player say no. I've had a few players say no.
No dice, kid.
Joe Thornton didn't want to talk after he set that record when they were in town the other day, but I don't hold it against him. Like, I heard the interview later where he was talking about, like, he's almost kind of, like, feels uncomfortable when people are like, you just passed Gordie Howe.
Yeah, shut up, I know.
And he doesn't think of himself. Anyway, some of the guys don't want to talk. Jaromir Jagr used to be hit and miss after games, too, and at that point, I'm like, you have the right to say yes or no. So the Canucks, though, you can pretty much walk up to whoever you want in the room if they're there.
That's cool.
Road rooms, it's some teams will write numbers on the board. Some will just send out the players. The PR guy will shout them at you. Sometimes they just open the door. Like, I can remember early on in my career, the Colorado Avalanche just opening the door, and I was the only one there that time. Other people hadn't gotten down yet. I'm just like, yeah, you can talk to whoever you want. And I was
Joe
like,
Sakic?
No, you know who I went
Milan
to?
Hajduk?
Guess who I went to?
Eric.
Matt Duchene.
Oh.
Not even joking.
Really?
That was early in my career. But yeah, I was like, I know Matt Duchene because it was one of those, I'm still new at this, who's young and I can recognize Matt Duchene.
Okay, so we'll leave it on that note. Across the way, there is a woman dancing in the mirror with clothes on for those listening, but she's really giving her. So you guys can look at that because I've been looking at that for a few minutes, and I'll do the plugs. I want to thank you all for listening this week and every week. Make sure you follow us on Twitter at PucksOnNetCA or PucksOnNetCa. And once again, support the show monetarily. You can head over to patreon.com/PucksOnNet where you can pledge a couple of bucks. $5 will get you instant access to all our bonus content, including our Newlywed game we're going to do after this. And then P Mac and I are doing a bonus episode on Friday before his New Jersey Devils game. So that'll be a hoot. And so Twitter, Pucks.net, Facebook, Instagram. If you don't want to give us any money, you can give us a positive rating and review on Apple Podcasts. Those always help a lot. And subscribe wherever you get your podcasts from. And pucksnet.ca, all that jazz. And let's go into 5 minutes. We're paying.
All right.
If anyone was wondering, I'm pretty sure that's some kind of Celtic or Gaelic dancing.
Well, now the show's officially over, so we need to keep that part in for free people.
You have to keep that in for the free people.
Yeah.
Okay.
Back move,